It is springtime in Seoul. Time for cherry blossoms and the yellow sansuyu or cornelian cherry flowers. As the winter chill makes way for warmer weather, tensions on the Korean peninsula thaw, raising hopes for peace between two countries that are technically at war for 65 years and counting. On 27 April, the leaders of South Korea and North Korea will shake hands for only the third time since the turn of the millennium. The Inter-Korean Summit will bring together President Moon Jae-in of South Korea and Chairman Kim Jong-un of North Korea. The Moon-Kim talks will also be followed by the unprecedented summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, a first for a sitting American president in the month of June. From calling each other names to shaking hands, from beating the drums of war to smoking the peace pipe. Will Trump's deal-making abilities come in handy? Can Trump succeed where others before him failed? Is there a method to Kim's madness? Join me, Ramesh Ramachandran, as I help you decode Korea. On 10th May 2017, 65-year-old Moon Jae-in was sworn in as the president of South Korea. President Moon fought and won the election on the plank of rapprochement with North Korea. The son of refugees who fled the communist north to settle across the 38th parallel in the south, Moon Jae-in knows only too well the perils of war. Within weeks of his election victory, Moon traveled to Washington for talks with Donald Trump. However, in Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un had other ideas on his mind. Kim surprised the world with North Korea's first successful test of an intercontinental ballistic missile that can hit the American mainland. He showed chutzpah to fire the ICBM on the 4th of July, the day America celebrates its Independence Day. Two months later, on the 3rd of September, Kim shocked the world again, this time by carrying out a 6th nuclear test. It was 8 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. North Korea's most powerful nuclear test and the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile were two key significant events in themselves. But it's what happened between those two dates that deserves your attention. On the 7th of July, 3 days after North Korea's 6th nuclear test, President Moon Jae-in of South Korea was in Berlin, Germany. There, addressing the Kerber Foundation, he outlined his vision for peace on the Korean peninsula. The choice of Berlin was significant. It was in Berlin in March 2000 that the then South Korean President Kim Dae-Jung spoke about his doctrine for peace and reconciliation with North Korea. Now, 3 months after that speech, the leaders of the North and South met for the first time for the Inter-Korean Summit. But that's not all. The old City Hall in Berlin, where Moon Jae-in spoke last year, is a historic site where the German Unification Treaty was negotiated. Now, unification of the two Koreas is an abiding theme for Korean leaders. Yet, there was another message in it. The German unification process was started by Willy Brandt, but completed by Helmut Kohl, who was from a different political party. For Moon Jae-in, it denoted continuity with change. He saw that the German unification process transcended partisan political considerations. It fueled Moon Jae-in's resolve to carry forward the process that was set in motion in 2000 by Kim Dae-Jung and continued in 2007 when Moo-Hyun held the second inter-Korean summit.
So when the conditions are met, I'm prepared to meet the North Korean ruler wherever and whenever Kim Jong-un, to meet him. So, if these meetings should be used as an occasion to stop the conflicts, and it is important to start and to take the first step. So we can take the first step only if we move.
It was no off-the-cuff remark. Moon Jae-in had come with a plan, and a detailed one at that. In fact, he outlined a 5-point roadmap. 1. Peace is the only goal.
We do not wish for North Korea's collapse and will not work towards any kind of unification through absorption. Neither will we pursue any artificial unification. It is a process where both sides seek coexistence and co-prosperity and restore its national community. When peace is established, unification will be realized naturally someday through the agreement between the South and the North. What my government and I would like to realize is only peace.
2. Pursue the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula in a manner that guarantees the security of the North Korean government.
However, it takes two to tango. This is only possible when North Korea fully stops its nuclear provocations and comes out to the forum of bilateral and multilateral dialogue on denuclearization.
3. Work towards establishing a permanent peace regime.
In order to establish a permanent peace structure on the Korean peninsula, we need to conclude a peace treaty with the participation of relevant countries and formally end the war. Through a comprehensive approach on the North Korean nuclear issue and establishing a peace regime on the Korean peninsula, my government will pursue the conclusion of a peace treaty along with complete denuclearization.
4th, draw a new economic map on the Korean peninsula.
We will freshly connect the South and the North, where it has been disconnected by the military demarcation line, with an economic belt and establish an economic community where the two Koreas prosper together.
And 5th, pursue non-political exchange and cooperation projects by separating it from the political and military situation.
In both Koreas, there are separated families who can no longer visit their hometown due to the division and war. It is truly an embarrassment for both the governments of the South and the North for not being able to heal the scars for more than 6 decades now.
Moon Jae-in did not stop at that. He proposed that North and South Korea start with what is easy.
제가 말씀드린 바와 같이
Solve the pressing humanitarian issue by reuniting more families and relatives.
The separated family members of the divided Germany were allowed not only exchange of letters and phone calls, but even exchange of visits and migrations. There is no reason why we cannot do the same. Before more members of separated families leave us behind, we must wipe their tears. If North Korea is not ready immediately, our side will allow and open North Korean separated family members to visit their hometown and ancestral graves in the South. I look forward to North Korea's positive response and hope that South-North Korean Red Cross talks will be held to discuss the reunion of separated family members.
Make the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics and Olympics of Peace with the participation of the North, halt acts of hostility around the military demarcation line, and resume inter-Korean dialogue. Moon Jae-in rounded off his Berlin speech by saying, and I quote, "We will complete in Seoul and Pyongyang the dismantlement of the Cold War, which started in Berlin. If Moon Jae-in showed courage to initiate peace talks, then surely Kim Jong-un needs to be commended for accepting the offer. In Kim's New Year address in January, he declared that North Korea will send its athletes to the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. He also said that Pyongyang was open for dialogue with the South. But at the same time, he kept up his rhetoric against the United States.
전원회의에는 조선노동당 중앙위원회 정치부 상무위원회 미국 위원 후보위원들 당대 위원 후보기관 기업소.
Kim Jong-un said that he always has the nuclear launch button on his office desk. He also warned of mass-producing nuclear warheads and ballistic missiles. Trump was quick to respond. First, Trump tweeted that Kim's desire for peace talks indicated that the sanctions were beginning to have an impact on North Korea. Then, as an afterthought, he tweeted this.
I too have a nuclear button, but it is a much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works.
It was neither the first time the two sparred, nor the last.
We will not allow this twisted dictatorship to hold the world hostage to nuclear blackmail.
Exactly a year ago, that is on 2nd January 2017, even before Trump was sworn in as the president, he had tweeted with his trademark bluster about North Korea's nuclear ambitions. One time, Kim so provoked Trump that the American president fumed that the era of strategic patience with North Korea is over. North Korea best not make any threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen, Trump thundered.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
And again, who can forget the name-calling? Trump told the United Nations General Assembly that Washington will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea if provocations from Little Rocket Man continue.
No one has shown more contempt for other nations and for the well-being of their own people than the depraved regime in North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
Kim Jong-un responded by dismissing Trump as a mentally deranged dotard. One casualty of Trump's verbal duel with Kim was Rex Tillerson, formerly U.S. Secretary of State. Tillerson told reporters that Washington had begun holding talks with Pyongyang, only to be publicly rebuked by his boss, who said that Tillerson was wasting his time trying to negotiate with Kim. But all that was soon to change. Just as the game of ping-pong paved the way for rapprochement between Richard Nixon and Mao Zedong in 1972, the sport of ice hockey helped thaw the ice between the North and South Korea. At the Pyeongchang Games, Pyongyang and Seoul fielded a united team and played as Team Korea under the unified flag. And who can forget the images of US Vice President Mike Pence and Kim Jong-un's sister Kim Yo-jong seated within shouting distance of each other at the inaugural ceremony of the Winter Olympic Games, or Trump's daughter Ivanka seated near General Kim Yong-chol of North Korea at the closing ceremony of the Winter Olympics. Now, by now, you would have had a fair idea of the contemporary history of Korean relations. But I want us to take a step back, look in the rearview mirror, and delve into history to better appreciate how we got to where we are today. All right, so our journey begins in the 20th century, more specifically in the year 1910, when the Japanese forces invaded the Korean peninsula and annexed the land. Now, then came World War II, which began in 1939 but ended in 1945. The Korean peninsula became divided into two parts. The USSR came to occupy the north and the US the south. Now, World War II ended in 1945, but another war was brewing. Come 1950, the Korean War began, until it ended 3 years later in 1953, after the Armistice Agreement was signed. In the mid-1980s, North Korea signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT. If you're wondering what the NPT is all about, well, it seeks to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and nuclear technology. In 1994, the founder of the communist North Korea, Kim Il-sung, dies. His son, Kim Jong-il, succeeds him as the new leader of North Korea. In the initial years of the new millennium, US President George W. Bush includes North Korea in his axis of evil, which included Iraq and Iran. Now, 1 year later, in 2003, North Korea withdraws from the NPT, 18 years after it signed the treaty. The same year, the six-party talks began. It included China, Japan, Russia, the US, South Korea, and North Korea. Now, North Korea conducts its first nuclear test in the year 2006 and a second nuclear test 3 years later in 2009. Now, after Kim Jong-il's death in 2011, his son Kim Jong-un dons the mantle of the North Korean leader. In 2013, North Korea conducts its third nuclear test, the first by Kim Jong-un. And 2 more tests in quick succession in 2016, a fourth nuclear test involving hydrogen bomb, and a fifth test involving a nuclear warhead. Now, it brings us to the year 2017, a crucial year on many, many counts. Now, in January, Donald Trump is sworn in as the US president. In May, Moon Jae-in becomes South Korea's president. In June, American national Otto Warmbier is released from North Korean custody after his health deteriorates and he dies upon returning home. The same month, Moon Jae-in visits the US, and two seminal events take place in the month of July. One, North Korea successfully tests an intercontinental ballistic missile, or the ICBM, and two, Moon Jae-in outlines his roadmap for peace on the Korean peninsula in a speech he delivered in Berlin. And on 3rd September, North Korea conducts its sixth and most powerful nuclear test to date. And this year, developments began to pick up pace, pick up momentum. In March, Moon Jae-in, as envoys visited North Korea. North Korea proposes a nuclear moratorium. It also shows interest in talks with the US. Now, the same month, South Korean officials traveled to the US, where Trump accepts talks with Kim Jong-un. Towards the end of March, Kim Jong-un takes the slow train to China and meets Xi Jinping. And earlier this month, Mike Pompeo visits Pyongyang and meets Kim Jong-un. The 2018 Inter-Korean Summit is the third meeting of its kind. The first Inter-Korean Summit was held in June 2000 and the second in October 2007. Pyongyang was the venue for both summits. The 2000 summit was held between Kim Dae-Jung of South Korea and Kim Jong-il of North Korea. The joint declaration issued towards the end of the talks said that the two leaders agreed to resolve the question of reunification, common element in the South's concept of a confederation, and the North's formula for a loose form of federation, promote reunification, resolve humanitarian issues such as exchange visits by separated family members and relatives, consolidate mutual trust through economic cooperation, and encourage cooperation in cultural, sports, health and other fields. The second Inter-Korean Summit was held in October 2007, again in Pyongyang, between Moo-Hyun and Kim Jong-il. The joint declaration said that both sides agreed to not interfere in the internal affairs of the other, resolve inter-Korean issues in a spirit of reconciliation and reunification, recognize the need to end the current armistice and build a permanent peace regime, get North and South Korea and some other parties to declare an end to the war, and discuss repairs of the Dae-Jung-Sinuiju Railroad and the Dae-Jung-Pyongyang Expressway for their joint use. WION spoke to two former South Korean officials about the agenda of the summit and their expectations from it.
In the past summits, actually, economic issues pronounced more strongly, but this time nuclear issue is the center of the conflict, so Moon Jae-in government decided to put nuclear issue on a top priority, and that's the right decision to make.
This coming summit meeting between North and South Korea is third into history, but it will be very much different from the previous two. Maybe the summit meeting between the North and South Korean leaders would symbolize the coming of the new age and new springtime on the Korean peninsula, and the people in South Korea expecting this summit meeting would be work as a priming effect on the next summit meeting between U.S. and North Korea, summit meeting. That would be that would be a very critical moment to determine the path toward the future of the Korean peninsula.
The Inter-Korean Summit will take place in the demilitarized zone separating North Korea and South Korea. The 38th parallel passes through the DMZ. Soldiers from both sides stand face to face in the joint security area, also known as Panmunjom. Now, the demilitarized zone has an interesting history, and what's more, it has an Indian connection to it. India, after all, was a key player in Korean affairs after the peninsula gained independence from Japanese occupation in 1945. Indian diplomat KPS Menon was the chairman of the United Nations Commission. Menon was independent India's first foreign secretary. The UN Commission was formed to oversee elections in undivided Korea. During the Korean War from 1950 to 1953, both the warring sides accepted a resolution sponsored by India. The armistice agreement was signed on 27 July 1953. Lieutenant General Themaya chaired the Neutral Nations Repatriation Commission. The commission helped to resolve humanitarian issues. The ties go further back in history as well. Legend has it that a princess from the North Indian temple town of Ayodhya traveled to Korea, married Kim Suro, and became Queen He Wang Ok in the year 48 AD. It is said that former President Kim Dae-Jung and Kim Young-ok, wife of former South Korean President Lee Myung-bak, among others, trace the ancestry to the royal couple. Indian poet and Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore composed a short poem titled Lamp of the East in the year 1929 about Korea's glorious past and its promising future. He wrote, "In the golden age of Asia, Korea was one of its lamp bearers, and that lamp is waiting to be lit once again for the illumination of the East." India's bilateral ties with North Korea have survived in spite of Pyongyang virtually remaining isolated from the rest of the world. India has in the past extended humanitarian assistance to North Korea, which has suffered food shortages during the last few years as a result of natural calamities. The assistance consisted of blankets, rice, wheat, soya beans, baby food, and polythene sheets. In 2015, India hosted the then North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Soo-yong. India's ties with North Korea have attracted criticism, but New Delhi continues to maintain an embassy in Pyongyang. India's Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj told her then American counterpart Rex Tillerson as much when he visited India last year.
कि जहाँ तक ट्रेड का संबंध है, हमारा और डीपीआरके का ट्रेड बहुत कम हो गया है, बहुत ही कम हो गया है। अगर मैं मिनिमल कहूँ तो गलत नहीं होगा। और जहाँ तक एम्बेसी का सवाल है, हमारी एम्बेसी का साइज वहाँ बहुत छोटा है, लेकिन एम्बेसी है। और मैंने सेक्रेटरी टिलरसन से कहा कि आपके कुछ मित्र देशों की एम्बेसी वहाँ रहनी चाहिए, ताकि कम से कम कुछ चैनल्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन खुले रहें। बहुत बार आपको बात करने की आवश्यकता पड़ती है, आपसी संवाद से चीजों को निपटाने की आवश्यकता पड़ेगी, तो कम से कम एक देश की एम्बेसी तो ऐसी हो जिसे आप अपना मित्र देश कहते हैं। और मुझे लगता है कि उन्होंने मेरी इस बात को बहुत समझदारी से लिया है और अंडरस्टैंड किया है कि ये जो दोनों बातें हमने रखी है कि ट्रेड कम कर दिया और एम्बेसी का साइज छोटा है, लेकिन हमारी एम्बेसी वहां बनी रहनी चाहिए, इसको उन्होंने अप्रिशिएट किया है।
Barely weeks after President Moon came to power in South Korea last year, North Korea's ambassador to India had told WION that Pyongyang was not only willing to hold talks with the South, but also the United States. Is Pyongyang willing to stop its missile testing to accommodate the US and its allies' concerns?
You know, America continuously threatening. Of course, Trump say, America President Trump said there are so many options, including the military way. So we should be ready, both of them, dialogue and then military way. So in certain circumstances, our demands is met, we can negotiate in terms of the moratorium of such weapons testing.
If I understood you correctly, Ambassador, you were saying that DPR Korea is open to the idea of a moratorium on nuclear and missile tests.
Yes.
And are you also open to the idea of talks with the US anytime, anywhere?
Yes, anytime, but without any precondition.
Clearly, a lot rides on the summit-level talks between Trump and Kim, two unpredictable politicians who revel in their non-conformism. Kim Dae-Jung won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2000 for pursuing talks with North Korea. The 2009 Nobel Peace Prize went to Barack Obama for fostering a new climate in international relations. Will the latest peace initiative on the Korean Peninsula end up with a Nobel too? I'm Ramesh Ramachandran, and you're watching Decoding Korea. Bye-bye.